live stream here on Free Will Photos. Today, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at ON1 Photo Raw Max as we interact with Photoshop and Lightroom Classic. Now, as always, if you want to pick up a copy of ON1 Photo Raw and you want to save a little bit of money, consider using the coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 when you check out, and you'll save a little bit of money. I get a small commission. It is an affiliate coupon, but it's at no extra charge to you. Now, I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the computer so we can go ahead and get started. Now, what you see here is a photo inside of Lightroom where I'm editing, or actually this is an unedited image, and this is a photo of a squirrel that happens to have a butterfly in its mouth, and I just wanted to edit this photo, see what I can get out of it. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on editing inside of Lightroom as much as I want to show you how you can go from Lightroom to Photoshop and then to ON1, or from Lightroom to ON1, depending on what your preference of workflow is. So what I'm going to do is just hit this with a really quick preset. I don't know which one is going to look good. Let me go ahead and click over here. Let's move that out of the way. And let's try out this preset. Nope, don't like that. This one doesn't look too bad. And here's... All right, let's see here. I'm not a fan of any of these presets, but whatever. We'll go with this one. We'll say that we like this preset, what this is doing to the overall photo. And I think that this is okay. We'll make it work, all right? Now, what I will do is I'll go ahead and, I think this needs to be reduced a little bit. So let's see what's happening here. I don't think much of anything's happening there. Most of this is probably happening in the tone. Yeah, that faded look. We'll go ahead and pull that back a little bit because I do want more rich tones in the overall image. So we'll just go ahead and kind of fix what's happening here. I don't think anything else is happening in the curve, so we'll go with that. And then we'll come over to the channel mixer, or a color mixer, I should say, not channel mixer. And with the newer versions of Lightroom, we have the point color, and that's a really cool tool. One day I will dive into that, but I think I'll actually leave this alone as well. And doesn't seem like this preset does do a little bit of purple hue in the shadows, which I don't know if I really like that. So we'll do something like that, and maybe I'll make this more of an orange hue. So let's bring this over. I want a warmer photo. Maybe something here. And I'll saturate it just a touch. Bring down the blending. Bring it up. Yeah, that probably looks like it'll work. We'll open up the shadows just a bit there. And then let's see what we got in the highlights. We'll go opposite color in the highlights. Maybe something like so. And there's so much creativity you can do inside of Lightroom that it makes it hard to really determine when would you actually need to go into ON1. And that's all based off of your particular end result. So what I like about editing in Lightroom is just the simple, the ease of use of the software, right? That's the main reason why I edit in Lightroom. It's very simple. It's pretty streamlined for the most part. And I also enjoy using the camera calibrations. Now, I'm not going to use that here on this particular photo. I don't think it really needs it. But now I think it's ready for me to send this to ON1 Photo Raw Max, which is the primary reason for coming into today's live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, and we are going to go edit in, and then I'm going to choose ON1 Effects 2024. You can, when you have the Max version installed, you can choose any of the things that say 2024. I can even go into develop 2024. So in fact, I'll click that. I recommend clicking effects or develop unless it's a portrait and you want to use portrait AI. I don't recommend clicking portrait. And now you're greeted with this option of how do you want to send this file into ON1. Now, ON1 can read PSD files. It just depends on if that's what you want it to do. But I think I'm going to work off of a TIFF. That's personally how I want to send this file into ON1. I think that ON1, I don't have any concrete evidence of this, but in my experience in testing, TIFF files work the best. And of course, you could send a JPEG, but you get more information with a TIFF. That's the reason why I send a TIFF file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit edit. This is going to open us up into ON1 Photo Raw. Eventually, we'll wait for that to go through. And it's going to open this in the develop module, which is where I want it to be. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll close out this little alert here. And now we have the image inside of ON1 and we're ready to start editing. All right. I didn't fast forward any of that because this is all live stream, so I can't fast forward it. Then what I'm going to do is click Brilliance AI because I think Brilliance AI will help me with the tones. I don't need it to really modify the colors. I just want it to help me with the tones, and it does a pretty good job there. Now, let me minimize the layers because we're not going to be using those today, or at least I don't think we will. We'll see. Stuff happens, and we'll bring up the levels. That way we can see what we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and pull my color amount all the way down because I think it does a good job at warming up the image, but we intentionally, or at least I intentionally, made it cool inside of Lightroom. So I want to make sure that we keep that same energy here inside of ON1. And now, with the tone amount up to 100, I think it's just easier to come into the tone and color and see what it's doing here. So if I pull up on my exposure to make things a little bit brighter, I think that works. But as I've said in previous live streams and videos, whenever you pull up on your exposure, you should always apply a little bit more of that contrast. So I'm going to pull up on the contrast so that way I don't lose detail in the overall image and make it look flat and soft, because that would be no fun. So we'll just go ahead and pull that up, pull down on the blacks. I think that's where I want that to be. And I'm actually pretty good with this tone and color, or this tone adjustment, I should say. This is what we came into Lightroom with, and this is after Brilliance AI. So where do you go from here? And this is the reason why I think most people will come into ON1. And I didn't do a really good job of this, but I want to show you kind of how you can work with Lightroom presets and, stylistic things, and then bringing them into ON1 and making a stylistic approach as well. All right. Now, what I can do here is I can come over to my presets, and let's say dream color. There's something in dream color that I really want to apply. Let's see what we got here. I'm just going to make those a little bit larger so you can see them. And, I kind of like this one here in the middle. So I'm going to go with that. Let's go ahead and click that. Now, this is way too strong. I'm not a huge fan of how strong it is, but what I can do is come over here to opacity and just pull this down until it blends in pretty decently for the overall image. So I think that works pretty good for what I'm trying to do. And I just wanted to check something. Making sure the audio is good. I know that things don't always work the way that I expect them to. All right, there was a truck passing by that was really loud. Didn't want that in the stream, so I had to mute my microphone. Okay, so now we are back to this particular image, and I have a few different options here for the style, and this is where you can really start to stack styles on top of each other by turning off each of these adjustments and seeing what it's actually doing to your photo is probably one of the best ways of learning how to edit and stylize your own images. I highly recommend doing this technique and working in this way, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start with the split tone tool here and see what that's doing. And, you know, that's where this warm orange look is coming from. And I actually kind of like that. So I'm going to just push that up a touch and pull up on the balance. And I think that that works well. Now, in the shadows, you know, I think I want to flip this because I want my shadows to be a little bit more warm. So I'm going to flip that, and then I'm just going to push up on the orange, pull down on the amount, and then I'm going to balance this more towards the shadows. All right. So by pulling this over to the left, I can balance it more towards the shadows, and it works out pretty good. I think I like this a little bit more. And in fact, I'm going to come over to my settings and see if a blend mode will help this blend in a little bit better. Usually something like overlay or soft light helps with building contrast in the image, but I want this to be a little bit more of a soft image. So I think something like color would make the most sense in this particular case, so that way I'm only modifying the colors inside of the overall image. So I think that this looks pretty good as is, and I can work with that. So now let's go to the curves. Now this is going to brighten up the entire image. You can see this has like a little bit of an S curve with a boost in the highlights just above the midtones, and then a little bit of a cut here in the shadow area. So if I turn this off and on, you can see what it's doing up here. You can really see it, and I think it's a little too strong. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull back on the highlight adjustment that was made here, and you know, just mess around with the shadow tones. In fact, I think they should be opened up a little bit. Yeah, I think something like that helps out. But look at how I lost that separation and contrast. So now I'm going to have to fix that here a little bit. But this photo filter gives like a golden overtone, which I think is actually kind of nice. It's a little too strong, so I'll just pull that down like so, and we'll leave it like that. And then the antique filter, I don't think I really need that. I don't think I really need this antique filter because I don't see much of a thing that this is really helping. So I'm going to leave that alone. And now we're going to come to local adjustments. I did this a little bit backwards in how I normally work inside of ON1. And that's primarily because I just want to show that you could really work in a lot of different ways and still come to an outcome, hopefully, that is desirable. And, you know, I'm working on getting to that outcome right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add a local adjustment. And what I really want to do is make my squirrel stand out in relationship to the background. I'm going to go ahead and click on the little mask icon so I can get my properties for this. I'm going to use the mask AI, and I'm going to mask out the background. Looks like it captured a little bit of his tail, but I can clean that up. And we're just going to go ahead and paint this effect into the background, like so. This is going to make everything behind the squirrel a little bit darker, and that's a little overkill and it's a little drastic, but using the Option key, I got this from a viewer, he mentioned this earlier. If you hold down the Option key, you can temporarily change your brush to whatever you have, the opposite of whatever you have selected. So if you look up here, I have paint selected right now, and as soon as I press the option key, erase becomes selected, and it's a little bit faster than using Shift X, and I'm finding it to be very, very helpful. You know, for the years that I've been using ON1, I've never used the option key, but let me tell you, the option key has become one of my favorite tools to start incorporating. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And that's what I love about bringing these videos out. As I share information, people share how they're using it, and it just helps me refine my own editing process, as well as being able to bring that same information to the community. So I really enjoy what I do here on the channel. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate all your views and your support. So here we have the background. Let me go ahead and turn this off, turn it back on. The background's a little bit darker and the squirrel is popping out a little bit more. So I can work with that. What I want to do is add another adjustment. This time I'm just going to manually paint in over the squirrel. And I am going to use one of these brushes here. And I think I want the Midtone Plus brush. So we'll go with that. And I'm just going to paint right over the squirrel. All right. And I'm not brushing, I'm clicking. And this is like an artistic way. At least I like to call it that. I don't know if it actually is or isn't. But it is a way of getting the brush ready to go. Or at least painting into your area in a unique way. So it's not like a perfect paint job. As you can see, that's gonna be very different than if I were to paint this across the entire squirrel in a single stroke or a couple strokes that all connect together. By putting it as little dots, it just helps with giving like this again, I call it the artistic approach. I don't really know what to call it, but that's irrelevant. So let me go ahead and pull down on the blacks, pull up a little bit on the exposure. We'll contrast this a bit more. And I think that looks good, but like I always tell you, you want to feather your selections. So I'm going to feather this a little bit. It just helps it with blending in. Now, I'm not making some world-class edit here, but hopefully by the time this is all the way done, it's going to look pretty good. Now, there are a ton of distractions inside of here. And one of the beautiful things about using Photoshop about editing on a computer and having Photoshop is that you can go into it, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to hit the check mark. This is going to send me back into Lightroom because it's going to save the edit and everything, and it's going to send me back into Lightroom. I'm going to have my edited version that I just built inside of ON1. Now I have that in Lightroom. And what I can do is come back over here, and I now have a reset selection tool or workspace, so to speak. But what I want to do is actually right click on it. I'm right clicking on the image itself, click edit in, and then open in Photoshop 2024. And I'm just going to go edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. I can also do edit original, and the Lightroom adjustments won't be visible. For this purpose, it actually works out because the version that I'm editing is going to have all of the ON1 edits go into Photoshop because those are baked into the file now. So if I right click that, it's going to open up Photoshop for us, and then we are going to get rid of some of these distractions. And I find Photoshop to be, for lack of better words, the king of cleaning up distractions. And that's the main reason why I think that it's really cool. Well, that's no good. If the file appears to be damaged, well, it opened it. I don't know. Sometimes things just don't work the way that we hope for them to. Just minimize some of these boxes that I have open here. All right, so we'll pull this down and let's start working on some of these distractions. Let's get rid of this little thing up here. So first thing that I always do, and many people recommend doing this whenever you work inside of Photoshop, is to duplicate your background. So I'm just going to right click and duplicate layer, and I'm just going to hit return or enter. That's going to give me my duplicate layer. And now I could rename this. Let's call this cleanup. All right, it's always a good idea to name your layer so that way you stay in the flow of what it is that you need to edit, and you know what you're doing. So what I want to do is get rid of this little area here. I'm just going to use the lasso selection tool. I'm going to lasso around this area like so, and I'm actually okay with getting rid of this leaf as well. And so we'll do something like that. And I'm just going to use the generative fill because that seems to work really well. And, you know, I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, you got to use the AI tools and stuff like that. What I find is using just the generative fill without putting a prompt in here. So we'll just go ahead and hit generate. It's going to remove all of that area and replace it with something that's probably really similar and organic looking. Like this looks pretty, let me move this out of the way. So you wouldn't even be able to tell that there was something over there. And this is the reason why I prefer to bring stuff into Photoshop like that. So I can really make the edits that I want to make. Again, I'm not saying this is some world-class edit. Just want to show the power that we have available to us. So these tall looking things, it's time to get rid of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click on cleanup again, and we're going to just make a selection. I need to include everything that I want to remove, and you know, this is how you combine softwares, right? And why I would do it. So we'll click generate fill or generative fill, and we'll let that generate. It should get rid of that background or those tall pieces of grass and make this a little bit more of a desirable image, so to speak. Okay, now it did mess with his tail a little bit here, but I think that that's okay. Let's kind of there we go. That one's much better. When I cycle through, that one looks pretty good. And this also looks pretty good. So I can't complain, right? I really enjoyed the generative fill for removing issues like that. It really does work. You know, like you can't complain about something that just works. Now this little stick, because it's in focus, it does distract. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Click over here really quick, deselect, and let's redo this. Like so, and then we'll go ahead and generate this and get rid of that. So now I'm going to have a clean background, free of distractions. The focus can really come into this little squirrel that's down here in the frame. And I think that that works out just the way that I would want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here so it's out of the way. And now it's time for the final touch for this particular image, where I am going to click, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut, Command, Option, Shift, and E. That's going to create a stamp layer. Then I'm going to right click on here, convert this to a smart object, and then I'm going to go up to filter and camera raw filter. And I'm doing this because I'm going to create a vignette for my overall image. And the way that I do this in pretty much every application is I take a local adjustment and I create a radial gradient from the center of the subject, and then I just shape it however I see fit. So I think that this looks pretty good. I need to invert this because I need my vignette to be on the outside of this circle. So I'll pull down on the exposure, and I think that that looks pretty good. We'll maybe feather this a little bit more. Just that, yeah, bring in the feather. Let's do something like that. And what I also do is I remove some of the clarity that's on the outside of my vignette, and the texture slider also helps out. And that just helps with the overall honing in to the subject in the center. So I'm going to hit OK. And then we now have, you know, a look. Is it the greatest? Probably not. But is it a look? Absolutely. And, you know, that's really what I wanted to showcase, because if I wanted to, I could take this back into ON1 by right clicking. I can duplicate this layer and I can label this ON1 Edit 2. And then I can send this layer, filter, and I can go back into ON1 and really start editing, right? If I wanted to. And that's kind of the beauty of having ON1 as a standalone plugin, or a plugin that you can use in some very powerful tools like Lightroom and Photoshop. And I'm just jumping in between these seamlessly. I'll be honest, ON1 Photo Raw Max has made me rethink my initial workflow, and in the coming months or weeks, I should say, I will be bringing that content to you guys. So you can see how the new version of ON1 has really changed my workflow, and even the way that I organize and manage my photos, because I'm enjoying having the capability of using Lightroom. Now, if you don't own Lightroom and you have no intention of ever getting Lightroom, then that's okay. You don't have to do that. But I do own Lightroom, or I have a subscription to it, and I do like using it. So, you know, I have to figure out ways of getting the value out of what I'm paying for. And this is one of those ways, I think. So that is the reason why I do it. But hopefully you found some value in today's content. If you did, smash the like button. If you want to pick up a copy of ON1 Photo Raw 2024, either the Max version or one of the versions that is not the Max one, then please consider using the coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 to save a little bit of money. Now, I know that there is a Black Friday deal, or a holiday deal, if you will, that ON1 is running. So hopefully you can, you know, take advantage of that and get that extra money off on the software. It really is a great tool to have in your photography toolkit, and I'm enjoying using the new version of 2024. I recommend it every time that I talk to people about photography, because I really do think that it is a great piece of software, even though it has its challenges. All right, I'm not here to tell you that ON1 is the perfect tool ever, but it is a really good tool, and I really, really enjoy it. Just like Photoshop and Lightroom aren't perfect tools, they're really, really good tools, and I enjoy using them. And hopefully you would think the same. If you want to take a trial of it, then go over to the website. You can find the link in the description box below. That is an affiliate link as well. So if you happen to purchase through that link, then I do make a small commission, again, at no extra cost to you. So until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.